shifting into slow and smooth movements. This
Yeah.
is what we can control.
Good segment.
Instead of running around and, oh, I need to do this and that, just coming back to really slow and smooth movements. And it can even start just with your hands and with your fingers. Just become aware of those little movements and just connect with that.
Yes.
And it will do some things with your body, and your body will respond to this
Mm.
in a way of starting to relax and regulate. It's not that difficult. It can start with this little thing.
Yeah.
Just in your hands slow and smooth. Become aware of that.
Often culturally, and particularly with our like the ways that we work with our body and exercise habits and all that sort of stuff, are very contractive and tension focused. And it's kind of one half of the coin. And when we start to slow things down and smooth them out, we become aware of that habit that has been developed. And like there's one term, I'm talking with a friend who's a race driver, and he talks about slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And
Yeah.
so I find that it's not like slow, smooth movements is like an eternal state that you need to be in to switch into the parasympathetic nervous system. But it's like an instrument that is so valuable to learn to then start to redevelop the body in a way that is in balance and has a good flow of energy that we can then start to move more powerfully over time, but still be relaxed while we do it. And I find that that's a useful distinction rather than just being stuck in the slow, smooth movement camp, because I got stuck in there for a long time of like, oh no, this is the way. But it's a seed that leads to a pathway that gives more options when we're using our body, I find.
Yeah. And there will be a time when we are better connected to the body, that the body will just tell you now, okay, now I want to do fast things, just in a natural thing like we see with kids.
Yes.
It's just like you can feel it, that the energy is there and the body is giving you signals, okay, now run or now do this.
Yeah.
It's just this intelligence of the system which will always be there and regulate.
Yes.
So in a way, it's really easy to get stuck on an intellectual level. And yeah, I did this for myself too, of course. When you think, oh, now I got it, and this is the thing. And the more you practice, the more you see, okay, there are many things, and all things together are the thing. It's just like finding the right balance between slow movements and fast movements. It's really not that difficult. But in my personal story and also in yours, Benny, we did all the fast things. Then for many years, then we did all the slow things for many years to realize, oh yeah, there is a world in between, and then not getting stuck in this world or in that world, but more clearly perceive, okay, what is needed, and this is the mastery in a way. And
Yes.
yeah, and entry point for many us in the Western world is starting with slow movements, because we were stuck in all those output and fast movements for many years. So
Yes.
it's just a counterbalance act, but seeing this is not the solution, this is just a pathway.
There's one other example that I think is helpful here is that, so when I first started practicing Tai Chi, and my teacher, who was an older gentleman, he I I thought, oh, this, I've got a background in movement and exercise, and I can do stuff. I'm flexible, blah blah blah, all this stuff. I should be able to do these slow movements so easily. And I remember when I was practicing some forms, and he came and gave me a fairly strong push and knocked me over quite easily, to bring about a point of, he said, "Where are your roots?" And I didn't even realize that I didn't have any at that point. And because my ego is like, yeah, I'm doing the movements just like you're doing them. But there was an underlying foundation that I wasn't even aware of that existed, was like the internal relaxation of my body. And when this gets talked about in a lot of Eastern based practices and martial arts and all that sort of stuff, like the developing of the roots is sort of like this ability for the body to be relaxed but active, so that then the weight is dropping down into the ground. So we literally, like, it feels like you have more roots. And this started with those slow movements of noticing where the tension was, where I was holding it, and the patterns that I'd created to, like, essentially protect my body, develop an armor of protection to relinquish that, so then the body could become more of a unified structure as it moved, rather than just individual parts. It was the sum of the parts. And it then started, I saw where it developed, as, because Tai Chi can translate to grand ultimate fist. A lot of people don't realize that it can be a very powerful martial art. And my interpretation of that is, when the body is appropriately relaxed, then kinetic energy can move through it forcefully, from the ground through the center to the peripherals. And this is where we can not just utilize it for a therapeutic effect on the nervous system, but also to develop martial power. And in Tai Chi, they call that Fa Jin, which is like to elicit force powerfully, where the force ripples through the body quite quickly. And so those slow movements and stillness practices were like the foundation that then that powerful movement was built upon after. And so for me, I had to take that step back and kind of relinquish a lot of that sort of individual muscular strength that I had developed, come back to, okay, my body is going to be stronger when it works as one. And
Yes.
then interestingly, it's sort of come full circle as to, you then see the benefit of both. And
Yes.
yeah, it brought, like, I really love the starting seed of bodybuilding, which was there's a guy called Eugene Sando, one of a guy that I was really inspired by early on in my 20s. And he was inspired by like Greco-Roman sculpture and like the development of the symmetry of the body, which sort of then turned into bodybuilding. And it's obviously gotten pretty turned into its own beast there. But we see, like, at the core of all these things are actually really beautiful practices. And so, like, whereas the development of the mind muscle connection. And so I find if we can kind of combine both worlds, we're slowing things down, we're unifying the structure in our movements, and then also developing this sort of finite level of control through each individual part to then keep bringing it back into the whole. This is a really wonderful way to connect with the body. And as you do that, it does have a very regulating effect over time.
Yeah. And realizing in a nutshell what you were explaining, it's a tool to become aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
And then starting making different choices, or when you move slow and you feel like in this area, oh yeah, in this millimeter I can feel tension building up, just stopping there and giving the body some time to regulate this tension, this disbalance.
Yes.
So it's not that you're doing the thing and the magic will happen. The thing is just a lens to look through and to teach you to become aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, this was also a thing I needed some some hours of practice to realize that, oh, it's not about the practice is just a lens to look through.
Yeah.
Yeah.